talk about close rate and reason for rejection with leads and new potential clients to your firm. A lot of businesses, especially law firms, are hesitant to call intake what it is. It is sales. It's your sales team. No matter what you want to say, if you're doing intake, you're a salesperson. If your paralegal is doing intake, they are a salesperson. They're wearing that salesperson hat at the time. So when we look at firms doing intake, having those conversations, talking to new potential clients, you need to know why they're leaving you, or maybe not leaving you, but why are they going to a different firm? Why are they not signing up with you? Or reasons you're rejecting it. So they might not be a good fit. All of that information needs to be tracked, maintained, so that you can improve your marketing, you can improve your sales process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you calculate close rate, and then a few examples of how you use that close rate, and then also a few examples of reason for rejection, or basically reason for not signing that person up as a client. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So when we look at close rate, it's a pretty simple calculation, numerator, denominator. On the numerator, we're just going with straight clients on this one, okay? So clients signed, you've either got signed retainers, you've got, maybe you're a PI firm and you've signed someone to a client agreement. Whatever it is, they are now your client. So you sign that client and you're going to divide that by total PNCs. So total potential new clients. That's going to be your close rate percentage. You might hear, I love when firms call it batting average, that type of a thing. So you can get an idea of what you're doing with the potential clients that come in. What is a good close rate? It really depends on the firm. You might have a firm that does higher volume PI cases. You do soft tissue, you do a lot of cases, you're a higher volume firm. Then you might have the flip side where you do fewer cases, you're looking for catastrophic only. So you're going to have a lower close rate because you need to talk to more potential clients. That's just the nature of the beast. So the first thing is really getting a benchmark. So I would say, my experience, you're looking about 10 to 20%. So the more catastrophic firms, they want to be pickier. They don't want to sign everybody. They're going to reject something that, even though they were not at fault, they did have some damages, but it's really light, really small. They're not going to take that on. So looking at close rate percentage, you need to set a benchmark. If you have this information already previously and you haven't done the calculation, go back and look at what your close rate has been per month. So this is one example of close rate. It's the kind of the classic one, right? You've got client sign versus potential client opportunities. You can look at close rate differently too. If you are maybe a family law firm and you want to look at consultations, paid consultations that you're setting, that's a close rate in itself as well. So you're looking at the consults divided by PNCs. So you've got your consult close rate. Maybe you want that to be higher than your client close rate. You want to do more consults. Maybe you find out it's not a fit. Either way, you're helping that potential client figure out the next steps in their legal journey. So there's multiple ways to look at close rate. I would say the main one, if you don't have it right now, is do the big picture clients versus potential clients, and get that idea of a close rate. What you're going to do with that close rate, so you've got a lot of different levels you can play with. You've got firm wide, and depending on the size of your firm, you've got individual players, right? So if you have, let's just throw a number out there, it's a pretty sizable number, 100 leads per month. It's a good number. Not a lot of firms get to that point. There's other firms that I know of for sure that do a lot more than 100. Nice and easy number to play with. So if you've got 100 potential clients and you guys sign up 25 of them as a firm, 25% close rate, doing really well. Let's say you have 4 people that are doing this. And when I say doing this, I mean they are responsible for taking the phone calls, responding to chat leads, responding to web forms, being the first line of defense, if you will, being that first contact, that first salesperson. You may have a paralegal that is overflow. You still have to track that, because if you look up and you've got number 1, they're doing 30%. Number 2, They're doing 25%. Number three, doing okay. And I don't know if this math works out, but number four is at 10%. Number four is going to say, these leads are bad. I'm getting all the bad leads. Everybody else is getting the good ones. Or I was busy doing this other thing. I had to go do X, Y, or Z. They'll have excuses. When you look at it from this perspective, there are some outliers, of course. They may have gotten a few bad ones, right? But overall, it will be a wash. They're going to look up and have a similar chance to close clients, to sign clients. So what you want to look at here is maybe this is a paralegal, take them off the phone, take them off the intake team. You may want to coach them up. That's cool too. Coach them up if you think they can get to that point. If not, you have to make a change. So having this data is very important. And then what you're going to do with the data is equally important, taking action. So my first advice is get the client signed versus total PNCs. Get that close rate, understand that close rate. If you're using a CRM, this means putting every single potential client in that CRM. So I've also had firms say, well, I only put the big ones in there, or I only do the ones that we do consults with. Put every single interaction, every single potential client that reaches out to you, whether they're at fault, whether you name it. Also, if you're a small, a family law firm, things like that, you've got to do a conflict check. So you need everybody in there. So make sure you are tracking that, putting that in there into your CRM, whatever you're using, whatever case management software, intake software. Very important. Most of them should also have ways for you to calculate this pretty easily. So close rate is the first section of this. Now, when we look at, let's say those 75 up here, you've got 75 potential clients that didn't sign with you for whatever reason. There's multiple reasons. The important thing is starting to outline those reasons. What's important to your firm? Again, this depends on the type of firm you have. Personal injury, you're going to have other reasons that you reject a potential client compared to, say, a bankruptcy or family law firm. So my advice would be don't have overly broad reasons, but at the same time, you don't want to have 50 different reasons because then your data doesn't have it's not a big enough data set to tell you anything. You're going to have 2 here, 3 here, 4 here. You're not going to be able to make decisions from analysis as easily. So here's a few options that I've kind of written down ahead of time. First and foremost, loss to competitor. So I have a little arrow here. If you lose someone to a competing firm down the street, you're going to want to know who that is. You might not find that out from the person. They might not tell you. Do your best to find out. Okay, they hired so-and-so. Love to know why. Is there anything we could have done better? That type of thing. But if you don't know who, it makes it a little bit more difficult as well. So lost to competitor. You've got other ones here not ready to move forward. Again, this may be a little bit more on the family law side or that type of practice area. Not ready to move forward is a nice way of saying that they, other than not being ready to move ahead, is the salesperson, the intake person, or the attorney wasn't able to convince them it is time to act, and it may not be time to act. So just be careful with that one. You might find people saying, "Oh, they're not ready to move forward." I put "not ready to move forward." You didn't ask them what's keeping them from moving forward. What's keeping them from taking action? You've got to ask those questions. So be careful with this one. It's important to have that as one, I believe, but just so they don't fall back on that. And that kind of leads me into the next one, no response. So if you have a system in place with your intake team, with your whoever's responding to PNCs, call, email, no response. Next day, call, email. If you can text, that's even better. No response. Next day, call, email, text. There should be that cadence. So you should have that set cadence, 3 days, wait another 3 days, and then contact them one final time before you close that one out. So I have experience as well with a sales organization that I was a part of, where out of 1,000 leads, 800 said closed dead. And I said, what does that mean? They said that, well, they just didn't respond. So they're dead. They're closed. They didn't respond. On to the next one. That's a total pop out in my opinion. So it was basically, they're not closed dead. Maybe you didn't do a good enough job contacting them, following up. You didn't do enough job, a good enough job explaining why it's important that they call you back and talk to you, why it's important that your firm is the one that they talk to and work with. So again, be careful. These two are very easy for an intake person, salesperson to say, yeah, it wasn't a good fit. They didn't respond. Wasn't able to get a hold of them. Check, when did you call them? Was it at 9 a.m.? Was it at 7 a.m.? Was it whatever time of day? That type of thing. So careful with those. You've got something like pricing or cost. Again, this may be more for those that are charging retainers or paid consults, that type of a thing. So cost and pricing do play a role. Now, some of these here, these are more PI related, right? So you do want to know, were they at fault? They were at fault. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Keep track of that, but make sure that they were at fault. That's why you rejected it. So this isn't just why they rejected you. It could be that you reject them as well. Same for the next two, right? Source of recovery. There's no insurance on the other side, the opposing party. They don't have uninsured motorists, something along those lines. Unless the opposing party has a lot of money in the bank, or they're a known celebrity type of a scenario, there's no source of recovery there. So you're gonna want to reject that. You're going to want to note that. Again, this isn't something that you can necessarily fix. If you're getting too many leads that have no source of recovery, not really in your control, but it's still good to know this is why you rejected it. It means your intake team's working well. It means your system is working well to reject those that won't work out. Damages, and this is kind of broad. You could do no damages, lack of damages, property damage only, that type of a scenario. Maybe they were in a car accident, they were not at fault, and they have just soft tissue damage, but no lingering effects, no long-term damage that you want to pursue. So you can reject it. Again, you can't control the level of injuries necessarily through your marketing, but that would be great if you could. But I think from that standpoint, maybe some people would argue you could, but that's for them to figure out. So it's really important that you trying to loop this all together. It's important that you track the reason why someone rejected you or you rejected them. So that reason for rejection, or the lost reason, why are you closing it? Why is it lost? If you're a sales manager, put yourself in that position. You want to see what your team did with the potential opportunities. If you're blowing opportunities, then you're wasting your money on the marketing. You're spending a lot of money driving people to your website, to your firm. Make the most of it, and don't just rely on them to say, hey, these were bad leads. Just, hey, boss, give me some more leads. Would love some more. Classic salespeople, but just be aware of that. And then again, close rate. So you can't figure your close rate without having the data input correctly. So every single person that contacts your firm, they have to go in that CRM. They have to go in that case management software. They have to go in a spreadsheet. Whatever you're doing, you have to do that consistently every day, all the time. So keep an eye on your close rate. If it starts dipping, figure out why. Look at your reason for rejection. Look at how quickly people are being called back. Look at how often they're being contacted. If they're not responding, are you contacting every day? There's some really great folks out there. Adam Boyd is somebody that I would recommend. I'll put him in the comments, but he's great with sales training and working with teams to get that close rate from 10% to 20%, that type of a scenario. Obviously, there's no guarantees. It's dependent on marketing, dependent on your resources and personnel. But intake teams are basically your sales team. So highly recommend you looking into this. And if I could ever help with anything, let me know. Thank you.